Hello and thank you for joining my channel. Today we are watching very instructive chess game played by the world chess champion Magnus Carlsen. He was black this game and his opponent Vakhal Sanap from Turkey, a strong Turkish grandmaster, was playing as white. If you're a fan of Caro-Kann, you enjoyed playing it, then you will surely enjoy this game. Magnus Carlsen showcased how you should principally play against attack h4 and h5 of the white. So if you ever faced this kind of trouble when playing Caro-Kann, this game will help you a lot. And without further ado, we will go straight into the game. So Vakhal Sanap opened the game with e4, Magnus of course replies with c6. After knight f3 and d5 we are in Caro-Kann defense. d3 for white, Magnus continues with bishop g4, immediately pinning this white knight. We have knight b to d2 to protect, and now we have e6 for Magnus Carlsen, so Magnus' intention is to probably later maybe take even with the e-pawn. White continues with h3 and now pressuring this bishop, asking Magnus Carlsen what will you do with this bishop. For now Magnus refuses the trade and he plays bishop h5. We have g4. White wants to get rid of this pin, Magnus retreats to g6, and we have h4 with a direct threat of h5 and trapping this bishop. Magnus continues with h6 of course, and we have queen to e2 here played for white. Magnus continues his development with knight to dc, with later idea of protecting this square of course, and maybe jumping on c5 later in the game. We have bishop to g2 for white. Now white finds this place for development. Now by computer evaluation this is not ideal and black has slight advantage, but this is not of course a mistake. You have to find a way to develop this white squared bishop. We have knight g2 f6 for Magnus Carlsen and h5 is on the board. White now pressures Magnus's bishop. Bishop retreats and we have g5. White wants to open up the position and he wants to pressure the position with this h-pawn. Magnus is in a dilemma. He chooses to take this, and after knight takes on g5, this bishop is attacked. It is defended, but Magnus sees that there is no way of chasing away with this bishop, and unless you go on g8, but then you will have a lot of time trying to develop it again. So Magnus for now plays d takes on e4, completely allowing white to take this white squared bishop. We have rook takes on h7 and knight takes on e4 for white. White is now slightly better. Magnus decided to trade, and after bishop takes on e4, this rook is under attack. Magnus retreats it to h8. Now computer suggestion was to actually play f5, but Magnus thought that this would leave this e6 pawn very vulnerable, and later in the game this could be a bit problematic. Bishop to d2 developing move for white. A bishop to d6 for Magnus Carlsen, with the idea to put this bishop later in the game if a rook on b1 is played, and then to protect this g7 pawn. We have a long castle for white and queen c7 played for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus also prepares a long castle here. A queen to g4 with immediate threat of attacking and taking away this pawn. Bishop to e5 was the idea of this move, previous bishop move, and now we have f4 for white pressuring this bishop. Magnus retreats to f6 and we have h6, so white is determined to open up the position and open up this h-file. Game continued with g takes on f6, and now we have f5. Immediately you cannot take, but after f5 you will be able to take this pawn. It is pressured twice and only the rook defends this pawn. We have e5 for Magnus Carlsen, refusing this trade, and we have rook takes on h6, and now a long castle for Magnus Carlsen. The only move of the position obviously, because if you trade this wouldn't be good, and now at least if the trade happens, Magnus will have his rook on h8 and he will be controlling the h-file. Game continued with rook d to h1, now pressuring Magnus's rooks. We have rook h to g8, attacking this queen. Queen retreats to e2, and now we have bishop to g5 played by Magnus Carlsen. A slight positional mistake, because right now what happened in the game was bishop takes on g5, rook takes on g5, and f6 here played for white. Now white had one move that would allow him to take advantage of the position. After rook takes on g5, instead of this you should play queen to e3, and right now after, for example, rook goes on g4, you will have this free pawn and you will be a pawn up with a very solid position here. Of course, this was a bullet game, and this was missed by Magnus's opponent. So we have f6, we have rook d to g8, now doubling up rooks on the g file. A queen to e3, a slight maneuver of the queen. Queen to a5 for Magnus Carlsen, now has to defend this pawn which was attacked in the previous move. We have rook to h8 for white. White offers the trade. Magnus of course refuses, goes with his king on c7 to unpin his pieces. We have rook takes on g8, rook takes on g8, and a3 was played played for white here. For now, maybe white wants to later push b5, but simply awaiting move and seeing what Magnus had in mind here. Magnus continues with queen to b6. We have queen taking up on b6, offering the trade of the queens, and now we are in the endgame, Magnus' favorite part of the game. Rook to h7 for white. The important thing about endgames is that you should always activate your rooks. Magnus' pawn is attacked, Magnus defended with rook to f8, and now we have a rook to h6 defending your own pawn here on f6 square. We have king to d6, a very important thing about Magnus' thinking, because you always have to keep aware of your king if the trade happens, what will your king do in the end games. And as you can see, Magnus' king is much better. He will be soon in the center, much faster than this white king. Bishop to f5 was played for white. We have b5. Now Magnus is completely ready to accept this. If the trade happens, king will pick up this knight, then king will come on e6, and after rook to g6, this pawn will fall here. So black will be winning that, so Magnus doesn't care about that. We have knight to b6 now. Maneuvering with his knight b4 on the board, we have knight to d5, endgame maestro, now putting this knight into use here on these nice dark squares. We have c4 here played for white. We have knight to f4, Magnus refuses this trade and puts knight on a really nice square here. c5 check, and now king to d5 was played for Magnus Carlsen. We have rook to h7, again trying to pressure this pawn and at least immobilize this rook. King to d4 was played for black, with later idea of maybe pressuring this pawn if this bishop ever moves. Bishop goes on e4 for white, and right now Magnus continues with a knight to d5, again offering the trade, blocking this bishop, and still this is a win, one endgame for black if this trade happens, bishop for this knight. Rook to h4 was played for white. Now rook to a8 was played for Magnus Carlsen, trying to create another weakness and pressure up this pawn. We have bishop to g6 check, and right now Magnus' king is in trouble. Of course, you cannot push this pawn because rook picking up on e4 is immediate checkmate. We have knight to a4 here, f4 here now. Attacking this bishop, we have bishop picking up on f7, so Magnus sacrificed the pawn, but we have rook takes on a3 here for black. And after bishop to e6 now, of course, black cannot take this bishop because this knight is pinned. We have a rook picking up on d3 check. Just it's worth mentioning here that after bishop to e6, for example, rook to a8 was one of the moves. If black decided to go back, then f7 would follow, and after rook to d8, rook g4, rook f8, bishop a2, rook a8, and bishop e6. Now actually white is doing much better here. He needs to find a way to maneuver his pieces and get this win. So Magnus correctly assessed the position, and after bishop to e6 we have a rook picks up on d3 with a check, and right now we have another mistake by white. He went with his king on e1, which is unfortunate right now because we have a brilliant move, king to e3. Right now this king is in a lot of trouble, and also what follows is knight to g2 fork. King continued with rook to g4. Now slightly better was rook to h8 here, but after knight takes on a6, f7, rook to d7, again this is a one endgame for black. Rook to g4 was played for Turkish Grandmaster. We have knight picking up on e6 since this bishop was no longer defended. This was a beautiful fork. We have f7 on the board, rook goes on d7, rook to g6 trying to attack this knight. Magnus retreats this knight, attacks white's rook. Rook to f6, we have king to d4. Now Magnus is getting ready to help his rook and knight here, and also getting ready to pick up these pawns. We have king to e2, king to c4 here, king to e3, rook to e7 just to protect this pawn, and after king to e4 we have king picking up on b4. White tries to enter in the position and somehow move away this knight and promote, but unfortunately there is no counterplay here for white. We have king picking up on c5, king goes on e4 for white, and after b4, rook f1, king d6, king f5, white decided to resign because he completely missed this fork here. He was in a lot of time trouble. Magnus was also in time trouble, and this is how this game ended. Obviously this is a one end game even if there wasn't this fork. As you saw, white wanted to give all of his efforts to try and capitalize on this past white pawn, but unfortunately there was just not enough resources to pull away with promoting this pawn to a queen, and white was forced to resign. And this is all I have prepared for you today, guys. If you enjoyed this game, please make sure to leave a comment, like and share this video, because it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, what else helps is that if you watch this video at least until the half of the video, YouTube will recommend it more. The longer the people watch the video, the more YouTube will recommend it. So I would really appreciate if you could do that, guys. It would mean a lot to me. I want to become a full-time YouTuber, and your help and your watch time really helps me a lot. Also, do let me know about this game. If you have any suggestions about future Magnus games, have I missed something in analysis or something else, whatever you like to say, I always enjoy reading your comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see each other in the next video. I wish you a pleasant night. Bye bye.